औज़ुबिल्लाहिमिनश्शैतानिर्रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, मैं हूँ आपकी मेज़बान फ़ायदा नकवीस दुआ के साथ कि जहाँ रहे खुश रहें, आबाद रहें। अल्लाह ताला की बेशुमार रहमतों व बरकतों, उसके फ़ज़ल और करम के साए में रहे। परवरदिगार आप सबको सभी अपनों समेत खुश आबाद सलामत महफूज़ रखे, दो जहाँ की तमाम तर शर से महफूज़ रखे, दो जहाँ का खैर कसीर आप सबको अता करे और इमाम ज़माना अलैहिस्सलाम के ज़हूर में ताजील फ़रमाए। हमें, हमारी मौजूदा आइंदा नस्लों को हमेशा हमेशा अपने वक्त के इमाम के मुखलिस तरीन सबकत ले जाने वाले और रुकावटों को अबूर करने वाले, वादों को पूरा करने वाले और तमाम जो अहद हैं उनको पूरा करने वाले साथियों में शुमार फरमाए और इस काबिल करे कि अपने वक्त के इमाम के दिल की खुशी, उनके दिल का सुरूर हम सब बन सकें और हमारे तमाम मरहूमीन की मग़फ़िरत फरमाए। और हमारे जितने मज़लूमीन बहन भाई हैं गज़ा में, फ़लस्तीन में, म्यांमार में, यमन, लबनान और कश्मीर, हिंदुस्तान के मुसलमान, बाराचनार के बहन भाई और जहाँ-जहाँ भी इंसानियत, जैसे सूडान में हमारे बहन भाई हैं या दुनिया में जहाँ-जहाँ भी इंसानियत दुःख तकलीफ़, रंज और गम में है और अपनी-अपनी आज़ादी की जंग लड़ रहे हैं और अपने आप की दिफ़ा की, अपनी आप की इंडिपेंडेंस की जंग लड़ रहे हैं, उन सब की अल्लाह ताला मदद और नुसरत फ़रमाए, कश्मीर समेत और हिंदुस्तान के मुसलमानों समेत और तमाम इंसानियत जहाँ-जहाँ दुःख तकलीफ़ में है, उनके दुःख दूर करे और तमाम ज़ालिमीन को तबाह बर्बाद और नीस्त नाबूद करे, सिवाय उनके कि जो हिदायत याफ़्ता हैं और जो हिदायत पा सकते हैं, अल्लाह उनको हिदायत दे। हम सब की और इस दुनिया को अमन-अमान का गहवारा बनाए और इस काबिल करे हम सबको कि हम अपनी ज़िंदा रहने की, अपने ज़िंदा होने की, अपने बेदार होने की, अपने बाशऊर होने की, अपने बाबसीरत होने की हकीकी तमसील बनकर अपने होने का फ़रीज़ा अंजाम दे सकें। इंशाअल्लाह आमीन। आज 18 अप्रैल है नाइ और 19 शव्वाल है और जुमे का दिन है। उम्मीद और दुआ करते हैं कि अल्लाह ताला के पाकीज़ा ज़िक्र से, उसकी हम्द और सना से आपने अपने दिन का आगाज़ कर लिया होगा और आप सब लोग मसरूफ़ होंगे अपने डेली रूटीन के कामों में, इसके साथ-साथ दुआओं और मुनाजात में, अपने वक़्त के इमाम से किए हुए अहद के ऊपर गौर कर रहे होंगे और उस पे तफ़क्कुर करते होंगे कि मैं इस सारे वादों में कौन से वादे पे पूरा उतर पा रहा हूँ, किस वादे की तकमील की तरफ बढ़ पा रहा हूँ, कौन से वादे में मैंने अपना अभी किरदार अदा किया है। क्योंकि ज़ाहिर है अतात एक वादा है और रुकावटें दूर करना एक वादा है, फिर मुश्किलात को दूर करना, सबकत ले जाना और इस तरह से हमारे 8 वादे हैं। तो उन सब चीज़ों में हम देखें कि हम कहाँ स्टैंड करते हैं और हमारी जो आने वाली नस्लें हैं, क्या वो इस नहज पर तैयार हो पा रही हैं कि वो इस ज़मन में कुछ किरदार अदा कर सकेंगी या नहीं कर सकेंगी। इन चीज़ों पे हम गौर करें और तवज्जो करें और अपने होने का सबूत दें। इससे कबल हमारी जितनी भी ज़िंदगी गुज़र गई हो, हम मायूस ना हों। अगर हमारे पास साँसें हैं तो उम्मीद बाकी है और हम अपने हिस्से की कोई ना कोई दीप, कोई ना कोई दिया जलाकर जा सकते हैं और अपने हिस्से की रोशनी फैला सकते हैं, अपने हिस्से कर सकते हैं। आखिरी साँस तक इंसान का काम हिम्मत ना हारना है और आखिरी साँस तक अगर हम बिस्तरे मर्ग पे भी खुदा ना खास्ता हो, तब भी इंसान के अंदर जो रूह है, उसका ज़ेहन है, उसकी सोच और फ़िक्र है, उसके इरादे हैं और उसके सुनने की सलाहियत तो फिर भी इंसान के पास किसी हद तक होती है और समझने की मरते दम तक होती ही है। अगर खुदा न खास्ता किसी का ज़हनी मसला ना हो, तो हम तब भी इल्म ले सकते हैं, तब भी हम नियतें बाँध सकते हैं, तब भी हम दुआ कर सकते हैं। मज़लूमीन के लिए दुआ हैं जो बेचारे इस वक़्त गज़ा में हैं और फ़लस्तीन में हैं और मासूम बच्चे जिनको कैंपों में आग लगा-लगा कर जलाया गया है और ज़ख्मी मासूम बच्चों को और जो जिस तरह लबनान के बहन भाई उनके साथ खड़े हैं, यमन के बहन भाई अपनी कुर्बानियाँ दे रहे हैं, लबनानी बहन भाई कुर्बानियाँ दे रहे हैं। तो जो जहाँ पे जो कर सकता है, कुछ नहीं कर सकता तो दुआ तो कर ही सकता है। आप खुसूसी दुआ का एक टाइम उनके लिए रखें कि अच्छा मैं जाकर कुछ नहीं कर सकता या वैसे कुछ नहीं कर सकता, तो मैं अपने मज़लूमीन बहन भाइयों के कामयाबियों के लिए दुआ करूँगा और अपने वक़्त के इमाम की ताजील सबसे बड़ी दुआ है। इस कायनात की जितनी मुश्किलें हैं, इमाम के ज़हूर से मंसूब हैं। अगर आज इमाम ज़हूर कर जाएँ तो इंशाअल्लाह सब मुश्किलात आहिस्ता-आहिस्ता जो है वो ख़त्म हो जाएँगी। तो हम सबसे बढ़कर जो दुआ करें वो दुआए फ़रज पढ़ें, उस दुआए फ़रज को रो-रो कर पढ़ें और तड़प-तड़प कर इमाम को की जो तलबगारी करें अल्लाह के हज़ूर कि हमें अपने वक़्त के इमाम की ज़रूरत है, हमें वो चाहिए हैं, हमारी वो ज़िंदगियाँ उनके बगैर वीरान हैं, उजड़ चुकी हैं। हमारे अंदर हमारी ज़िंदगियाँ बाकी नहीं रही हैं अगर हम हकीकी मायनों में देखें तो। तो इन सब चीज़ों पे हम गौर करें, इन सब चीज़ों में हम अपने वक़्त के इमाम को शिद्दत से याद करें, उनसे अपनी मोहब्बत का इज़हार करें, उनके वादों का जो है एतराफ़ करें और उनसे कहें कि हमें आपकी ज़रूरत है। हम आपके बगैर अधूरे हैं, नामुकम्मल हैं। हम गुनहगार और कमज़ोर हैं, बेशक हम अपाहज हैं ज़ाहिरी तौर पे, ना सही लेकिन जो हमारे किरदार और नफ़्स के एतबार से जो हमारी बातिनी शक्ल बनती है, उसमें अगर हम देखें तो हम शायद वो परवाज़ के काबिल नहीं हैं, लेकिन जैसे भी हैं हम आपके हैं और आपके ज़हूर की दुआ करते हैं और आपका साथ देना चाहते हैं और वो तौफ़ीक़ात अल्लाह से तलब करें कि हम अपने वक़्त के इमाम की, चाहे वो ज़हूर के बाद हो, ज़हूर के वक़्त हो या ज़हूर से पहले हो, हम अपने इमाम के नासिरीन में शामिल हों और जो कुछ हमारे पास है हम उनकी राह में कुर्बान कर सकें और अपना सब कुछ उनकी राह पर दे सकें इंशाअल्लाह, आमीन। अभी हम बढ़ेंगे मौसम के हाल पे और देखेंगे कि आज मौसम कैसा है। मौसम अमूमी तौर पे ज़रा मिला-जुला है और सर्द है और काफ़ी ज़्यादा जो है बादल जो हैं वो छाए हुए हैं, क्लाउडी है किसी हद तक। तो लंदन में रहेगा 14 डिग्री सेल्सियस तक और मैनचेस्टर में 12 डिग्री सेल्सियस है और एडिनबरा में 6 डिग्री सेल्सियस है और क्लाउडी और इस तरह से रहने की तवक्को है। नॉर्दर्न आयरलैंड में भी 7 डिग्री सेल्सियस है, जबकि ग्लासगो में 6 डिग्री सेल्सियस की तवक्को है। कार्डिफ में 10 डिग्री सेल्सियस रहेगा और इस्लामाबाद पाकिस्तान में 33 डिग्री सेल्सियस है। वहाँ पे ज़ाहिर है बहुत ही हालात वेदर के जो है ख़राब हैं। दुआ कीजिए वहाँ अपने बहन-भाइयों के लिए, क्योंकि कल ज़ाराबारी से काफ़ी ज़्यादा नुकसान भी हुआ और को काफ़ी मुश्किलात भी हुई और अल्लाह ताला से हम सब रहम की दुआ करें और अपने किरदारों पर तवज्जो दें और ये बहुत ही अहम है। अल्लाह हम सब की ज़िंदगियों के मौसम, हमारे वजूद के मौसम, उसकी अताअत, उसकी फ़रमाबरदारी, उसकी मारिफ़त और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद की मारिफ़त और उनकी अताअत के साथ जोड़े रखे। कुरान की दुरुस्त फ़हम और समझ और उसकी अताअत और उसकी हमसफ़री के साथ जोड़े रखे, क्योंकि असल दोस्त कुरान है, मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद है, अल्लाह की ज़ात है, असल महबूब खुदा की ज़ात है और मोहब्बत की ज़ात है। हम कोशिश करें कि अपनी ज़ात को हकीकी जो हमारा जिसका मतलूब है जिसे कहते हैं, उसकी तरफ अपने आप को बढ़ा सकें और अपने आप को उन रुकावटों को अपने अंदर की और बाहर की रुकावटों को हटा सकें कि जो हमारे और उसकी राह में हायल होती हैं और अपने अंदर को अपने जो अल्लाह ने आपको अपना आप दिया है, उसमें जो सलाहियतें दी हैं और जो उसमें खूबियाँ दी हैं, जो उसमें पैशन्स दिए हैं और जो उसमें अच्छाइयाँ दी हैं, उनको रीबिल्ड करें, उनके साथ कनेक्ट हों और देखें कि वो जो आपके अंदर पैशन्स हैं, वो जो आपके वो सारी चीज़ें जो आपको हकीकी मायनों में मानवी खुशियाँ देती हैं, सुकून देती हैं, उन सब की तरफ तवज्जो दें और देखें कि आपको क्या चीज़ खुशी देती है और वो कहाँ तक लेकर जाती है। उसका यानी मतलूब दुनिया है या अल्लाह की ज़ात है और फिर इससे आपको समझ में आएगा कि आपकी शख्सियत कहाँ थी, कहाँ है और कहाँ जा रही है और आपको हकीकत में कहाँ पहुँचना है। अपना सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शन जो है वो उस पे ख़ुसूसी तवज्जो दें और इस दुनिया में शुहदा की माने ज़िंदगी गुज़ारना ये हमारा अवलीन तरीक़ा होना चाहिए, क्योंकि शहादत से पहले शहादत बहुत ज़रूरी है और शहादत का मतलब गवाही देना है कि अल्लाह की ज़ात है और मैं उसका बंदा हूँ और वो मेरा मालिक है और मेरे वजूद की रियासत के ऊपर उसका हुक्म चलता है और मेरी ज़िंदगी की रियासत पे भी उसका हुक्म चलता है। मेरे इर्द-गिर्द जो सब है वो उसकी अमानत है और मैं अपने समेत किसी चीज़ का मालिक नहीं हूँ, सिर्फ़ रब की ज़ात मेरे से मंसूब हर चीज़ की और मेरे गिरदो-नवा में और इस कायनात में हर शय की मालिक है। जब हम अपनी तौहीद को जो अल्लाह की समत है उसको मज़बूत करेंगे, अपनी विलायत के एहसास को जो अल्लाह का हम पे है कि वो हाकिम है, वो मालिक है, वो डिसीजन मेकर है, उसके जो वादे पूरे होते हैं, उसकी बात सही है और हक है और हम अपनी वजूद को उसके हिसाब से ढालने की कोशिश करेंगे, ना कि अपनी ख्वाहिशात को अल्लाह ताला की मर्ज़ी पे कोशिश करें कि हमें वो दे दे जो हमारे लिए सही नहीं है। तो हम अपने दिल को कोशिश करें कि खींच कर अल्लाह की रज़ा में राज़ी रहने की सलाहियत को बेदार करने, ईजाद करने और उसके ऊपर खुश दिली से राज़ी रहने की एक तरबियत करें। ये बहुत मुश्किल काम है, आसान नहीं है, लेकिन नामुमकिन नहीं है। इसके लिए कुरान, मनाजात, दुआओं, अहले बैत की सीरत अतहर, उसवाए अहले बैत से मदद लीजिए। ये बहुत, बहुत, बहुत ज़रूरी है और वक़्त ज़ाया ना कीजिए। ज़िंदगी बहुत कीमती है, सेहत बहुत कीमती है। आज वक़्त और सेहत और ज़िंदगी अगर आपके पास है, तो आप अपने आप को बिल्ड कर सकते हैं, सच्ची तौबा कर सकते हैं, अपने मरहूमीन के लिए भी, अपने लिए भी, अपनी मौजूदा और आइंदा नस्लों के लिए لیے بھی، اور کیونکہ سچی توبہ سے ہمارے گناہ اللہ تعالیٰ کی رحمت سے نیکیوں میں بدل جاتے ہیں، کیونکہ جو بھی گناہ، جو بھی برائیاں ہم کرتے ہیں ان کی شکل نہیں بدلتی، یعنی ایک وے میں وہ ہمیشہ ہمیشہ ہمارے ساتھ رہتے ہیں، لیکن جب انسان سچی توبہ کر کے دنیا سے جاتا ہے تو اللہ کی رحمت ان گناہوں کو اچھائیوں سے، نیکیوں سے بدل دیتی ہے۔ یہ اس کا کتنا کرم ہے انسان کے اوپر کہ اتنے گناہ ہم کرتے ہیں اور وہ کتنا کریم ہے کہ ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دیتا ہے، ہمارے ایک آنسو کو وہ قبول کر لیتا ہے۔ اور آپ اس طاقت کو مت جو ایسے جانے دیجیے، ان لمحوں کو ایسے مت جانے دیجیے۔ آج ہی اپنے دن میں ہی اپنے ہر گناہ کو یاد کریں، تمام اعضاء کے گناہ، بچپن کے گناہ، نادانی کے گناہ، ناسمجھی کے گناہ، خیالات کے، جسم کے، سوچ کے، فکر کے، عمل کے، جو بھی ہمارے وجود کی ظاہری باتیں، جو ہم نے کسی پہ ظلم کیا ہے، کسی سے کوئی چیز لے کر واپس نہیں کی ہے، کسی کو دھوکہ فریب، جھوٹ بولا ہے، کسی کا نقصان کیا، کچھ بھی کیا ہے، تو ان کو یاد کیجیے اور ان سے بھی معافی طلب کیجیے، اور اگر ان سے نہیں کر سکتے تو اللہ سے ان کے حق میں معافی طلب کیجیے، اور اللہ سے اپنے حق میں بھی معافی طلب کیجیے۔ جو ہم کر سکتے ہوں، اپنا صدقہ دیجیے، امام کا صدقہ دیجیے، امام کو سورہ یاسین یا جو بھی سورہ آپ کے دل کے قریب ہے ہدیہ کیجیے، اور اپنے وقت کے امام کو خصوصی یاد کیجیے۔ آج جمعے کا دن ہے، ان سے منسوب ہے۔ ابھی ہم بڑھیں گے ہدایت واک کے خوبصورت سیگمنٹ کی جانب اور دیکھیں گے کہ آج مولانا غلام حسین عدیل صاحب ہمارے لیے کیا پیغامات جو ہیں وہ لے کر آئے ہیں۔ پڑھتے ہیں ہدایت واک کی جانب۔
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، وبہ نستعین وہو خیر المعین۔ اللہم انا نرغب الیک فی دولت کریمہ تعز بها الاسلام واہلہ وتذل بها النفاق واہلہ، وصلی اللہ علی محمد وآلہ الطیبین الطاہرین المعصومین المنتجبین الہداة المہدیین، سیم بقیت اللہ فی العالمین، روحی و ارواح العالمین لتراب مقدمہ الفدا۔ آج کی ظاہر ہے کہ بہت ہی اس لحاظ کے ساتھ اہم کہ جمعرات کا دن، جمعہ کا دن، شب جمعہ عبادت کے بھی دن ہے، مناجات کا بھی ہے، مغفرت کا بھی ہے، اپنے اپنے مرحومین کے لیے دعا کا بھی ہے، اور یہاں پہ زینبیون کی بارگاہ اقدس ہے کہ جنہوں نے، میں نے دیکھا کہ ان کی قبروں کے اوپر ایک جملہ جو لکھا ہے، اکثر قبروں پہ یہ نظر آ رہا ہے، اور وہ یہی ہے کہ کلنا عباس کا یا زینب۔ حضرت عباس علیہ السلام ان کی شان اور بیوی کی وہ عظمت کہ بیوی ہم سارے کے سارے آپ کے عباس بن کر آپ کے اس حرم کو جو ہے وہ دفاع کریں گے۔ حق بنتا ہے شہداء کا، شہداء کی جو فیملیز ہیں ان کے ساتھ ہمدردی کرنے کا۔ بہت بڑی تسکین ہے اور بہت بڑا سکون انسان کو ملتا ہے جب انسان شہداء کی قبور کو اور شہداء کی اس عظمت اور جلالت کو جب ایک انسان دیکھتا ہے۔ میں جب آیا اور یہاں پہ دیکھا قبرستان، فاتحہ پڑھی، ان سب شہداء کے لیے دعا کی، اور یہ ہے بھی بہشت معصومہ ہے اور یہ مدافعین ہے، حرم ہے بی بی زینب سلام اللہ علیہا کی بارگاہ اقدس میں جان نثار کرنے والے ہیں، جنہوں نے جانوں کی پرواہ نہیں کی، مال کی پرواہ نہیں کی، اپنے گھر کی پرواہ نہیں کی۔ اور اس میں قبروں کے اوپر ایک جو میں نے ربائی دیکھی ہے لکھی ہوئی، اس میں ایک یہ ہے کہ ان کس کے ترا شناخت جان راچے گناہ۔ تقریباً یہاں پہ قبروں کے اوپر ایک ربائی جو لکھی ہوئی ہے، تقریباً 80% 90% ایک ہی ربائی ہے کہ ان کس کے ترا شناخت جان راچے گناہ، فرزند و عیال و خانمان راچے گناہ، دیوانہ کنی ہر دو جہانش بخشی، دیوانہ تو ہر دو جہان راچے گناہ۔ جسے تیری معرفت مل گئی، جسے تیرا عرفان مل گیا، اسے جان کی پرواہ نہیں ہے، اسے گھر کی پرواہ نہیں ہے، اسے اس دنیا کی کوئی پرواہ نہیں ہے، نہ مال دنیا کی اسے کوئی پرواہ ہے، نہ حب ذات کی اسے کوئی پرواہ ہے، نہ حب حیات کی اسے کوئی پرواہ ہے، نہ حب اقتدار کی اسے کوئی پرواہ ہے۔ ان کس کے ترا شناخت جان راچے کنند، فرزند و عیال و خانمان راچے کنند، دیوانہ کنی ہر دو جہانش بخشی، دیوانہ تو ہر دو جہان راچے کنند۔ جو تیرا عاشق بندہ ہے، تیری معرفت سے سرشار ہے، جو تیرے عشق میں اس قدر مستغرق ہے، اسے کیا ہے؟ اسے نہ اس دنیا کی ضرورت ہے نہ اس دنیا کی ضرورت ہے، وہ تو تیری ذات اور تیرے لقاء اور تیرا عشق اور تیری محبت کے سوا کچھ نہیں چاہتا ہے، نہ اسے اس دنیا کی کوئی پرواہ ہے نہ اسے اس دنیا کی۔ بہت بڑی، جس طرح میں سمجھتا ہوں زندوں کے حقوق ہیں، اسی طرح مرنے کے بعد جو مرحومین ہیں ان کے بھی حقوق ہیں، جو اموات ہیں ان کے بھی حقوق ہیں۔ ان حقوق میں مرحومین کے جو حقوق ہیں ان میں سے ایک حق یہ ہے کہ ان کی قبروں کی وزٹ کی جائے، ان کے قبروں کے آیا جائے اور ان کی قبروں پہ آ کے زیارت کی جائے، اور بالخصوص جو شہداء کی قبور ہیں، اللہ اکبر، کہ جنہوں نے اپنی جانوں کے نذرانے اس مشن مقدس کی بقا کے لیے، ابقاء کے لیے، اس وقت جو گلستان حسینی آباد ہے، یہ سارے کا سارا صدقہ ہے ان شہداء کے خون مقدس کا۔ اور یہاں پہ ایک چیز کہ جو حق میں شامل ہے اور حقوق میں شامل ہے مرحومین کے سلسلے میں، اموات کے سلسلے میں، کون سے گھر ہے کہ جس گھر میں مرحومین نہیں ہیں، گزشتگان نہیں ہیں، اس دنیا سے رخصت ہونے والے نہیں ہیں۔ ہمارا حق بنتا ہے جمعرات کا دن آ جائے، جمعے کا دن آ جائے، شب جمعہ آ جائے، ہمیں سب سے زیادہ اپنے مرحومین کو یاد کرنے کی ضرورت ہے۔ ہم اپنے مرحومین کو یاد کریں، اور اس میں ان حقوق کے ساتھ ساتھ جس طرح آپ ان کے لیے دعا کرتے ہیں، ان کے حق میں مغفرت کرتے ہیں، ان کے لیے قرآن خوانی کرتے ہیں، ان کے لیے استغفار کرتے ہیں، اللہ سبحانہ و تعالیٰ انہیں بھی اجر دیتا ہے۔ اور آپ نے جو ایفرٹ کی ہے، بالخصوص جو حدیث میں ہے کہ جو آتا ہے ان شہداء کی قبور پہ آ کے وزٹ کرتا ہے، زیارت کیا کرتا ہے، ایک حج کا اللہ سبحانہ و تعالیٰ اسے ثواب عنایت فرماتا ہے۔ بہت سی روایات، بہت سی احادیث اس بات کے اوپر ہیں کہ اگر آپ دیکھنا چاہتے ہیں، اس میں یہ ہے کہ حضور فرماتے ہیں کہ جب آپ قبور کی زیارت کرتے ہیں، قبروں پہ جاتے ہیں، وزٹ کیا کرتے ہیں، ایک تو یہ ہے کہ آپ کو یاد آخرت کی طرف چلے جاتے ہیں۔ انسان دیکھتا ہے جب قبور میں ان گزشتگان کو، جب انسان دیکھتا ہے ان مرحومین کو، جب انسان دیکھتا ہے تو اس وقت انسان کو آخرت کی یاد آتی ہے، آخرت کی یاد کی طرف انسان جاتا ہے۔ اور پھر فرماتے ہیں ما من عبد مؤمن زار قبر مؤمن فقرأ عنده انا انزلناه فی لیلۃ القدر۔ فرماتے ہیں کہ جو شخص کسی مومن کی قبر کی زیارت کے لیے آتا ہے، دیکھیے حضور نے کس قدر خوبصورتی کے ساتھ، کس قدر جو ہے نا وہ عظمت کے ساتھ حضور معظم صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ وسلم فرماتے ہیں کہ جو شخص کسی مومن کی قبر کی زیارت کے لیے آتا ہے تو کیا ہوتا ہے؟ حضور فرماتے ہیں فقرأ عنده انا انزلناه فی لیلۃ القدر، قبر کے پاس بیٹھ کے وہ سورہ انا انزلنا پڑھتا ہے۔ جی سورہ انا انزلنا یعنی بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، انا انزلناہ فی لیلۃ القدر وما ادراک ما لیلۃ القدر، لیلۃ القدر خیر من الف شہر تنزل الملائکۃ والروح فیہا باذن ربہم من کل امر سلام ہی حتی مطلع الفجر۔ حضور فرماتے ہیں کہ اگر کوئی شخص قبر مومن کے پاس بیٹھ کے کھڑے ہو کر 7 مرتبہ سورہ انا انزلنا کو پڑھتا ہے تو فرماتے ہیں الا غفر اللہ لہ ولصاحب القبر، اللہ اسے بھی معاف کر دیتا ہے اسے سورہ انا انزلنا کی اس برکت سے، اور اللہ پڑھنے والے کو بھی معاف کرتا ہے۔ کتنا بڑا اجر ہے اپنے مرحومین کی قبور پہ آنے کے لیے، اور بالخصوص شہداء دل ان شہداء کی قبروں کو دیکھ کے تڑپ جاتا ہے، اور بالخصوص ان کی یہ جو جوان ہیں، جوان سالم ہیں، انہوں نے یہ قربانی کی ہے، یہ ایثار کیا ہے، اپنی جان کا ہدیہ انہوں نے بارگاہ بی بی زینب سلام اللہ علیہا میں پیش کیا ہے۔ اللہ سبحانہ و تعالی ان شہداء عزیز پہ اپنی رحمتیں اور برکتیں نازل فرمائے، اور ان کے جتنے بھی لواحقین ہیں، پسماندگان ہیں، ان کے بچے ہیں، ان کا خاندان ہے، ان کی فیملیز ہیں، ان کے جتنے بھی پسماندگان ہیں، اللہ سبحانہ و تعالی انہیں صبر جمیل عنایت فرمائے۔ والسلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ۔
ویلکم بیک ناظرین، ہم حاضر ہوئے آقا کے بہت ہی خوبصورت پیغامات کے بعد، اور یقینی طور پہ یہ پیغامات ہمیں بہت کچھ سکھاتے ہیں، بہت ساری چیزوں کی طرف متوجہ کرتے ہیں، جس میں ظاہر ہے شہداء کے حقوق بھی ہیں اور مرحومین کے حقوق بھی ہیں، اور وہ شہداء جنہوں نے اپنا سب کچھ اللہ کی راہ میں نچھاور کیا ان کے خاندانوں کے حقوق بھی ہیں، ان معصوم بچوں کے حقوق بھی ہیں جو بچے یتیم رہ گئے، جن کے کوئی پرسان حال نہیں اور قسم پرسی اور یتیمی کی حالت میں، محرومی کی حالت میں ہیں۔ یہ سب ان سب لوگوں کی ذمہ داریوں میں آتا ہے جو سب یعنی یہ استطاعت رکھتے ہیں کہ ان کے کام آ سکیں، ان کی مدد کر سکیں، اور یہ مدد کوئی احسان نہیں ہے، یہ فریضہ ہے۔ جو پیچھے رہ جانے والے ہوتے ہیں ان کا فریضہ ہوتا ہے کہ وہ بنا احسان جتائے اور کسی بھی قسم کی جو شو آف کے اپنے ان بہن بھائیوں کو، ان فیملیز کو، بالخصوص جو شہداء سے ریلیٹڈ ہے، جن کے خاندان کے لوگ شہید کر دیے گئے ان کسی بھی حالات کے باعث، ان سب کی جو ہے مدد کریں، ان کے کام آئیں، ان کے لیے آسانیوں کا باعث بنے، ان کے بچوں کی تعلیم و تربیت، ان کی جو ازواج ہیں، ان کے جو خاندان ہیں، جو ان کے والدین ہیں، ان کی جو مدد بہت سارے طریقوں سے انسان کر سکتا ہے اور متوجہ ہو سکتا ہے۔ تو جو جہاں پہ جو بھی کر سکتا ہو وہ اپنا فریضہ پراپر طریقے سے نبھانے کی کوشش کرے، بالخصوص ایسے لوگوں کو تعلیم دینا، ہنر سکھانا، اور ان کو ایک سپورٹ کا احساس دینا کہ وہ تنہا یہاں نہیں ہیں، یہ بہت ہی اہمیت کا حامل ہے تاکہ ان کی نسلیں آگے اچھے انداز سے بڑھ سکیں اور ان کی زندگیاں خراب نہ ہوں۔ یہ ظاہر ہے ہم سب کی ذمہ داریوں میں شامل ہونے والی ایک چیز ہے۔ اس کے ساتھ ساتھ یہ ہے کہ جو ہمارے مرحومین دنیا سے چلے جاتے ہیں ہم ان کو بھی یاد کریں اور ان کے لیے بھی دعا کریں کہ اللہ تعالیٰ ان کے وسیلوں سے، ان کے ذریعے سے ہماری زندگیوں کو یعنی ان کی آخرت بخیر کرے اور ہماری بھی آخرت بخیر کرے۔ جب ہم ان کے لیے دعا کرتے ہیں تو وہ بھی ہمارے لیے دعا کرتے ہیں اور ہمارے لیے اللہ تعالیٰ کی بارگاہ میں جو ہے وہ خدا کی بارگاہ میں ہمارے لیے خیر کے طلبگار بنتے ہیں۔ ان چیزوں کی طرف ہم توجہ دیں۔ پھر اس کے بعد جو ہمارے شہداء ہیں ان کی وصیتوں کو پڑھیں۔ جب خصوصی طور پہ جب ہم شب جمعہ کو دعائے کمیل پڑھتے ہیں، دعا کرتے ہیں، اللہ سے اپنی معافی کی طلبگاری کرتے ہیں، اپنے دل کو شفاف کرتے ہیں۔ جمعے کے دن جب ہم دعائے جشن کبیر پڑھتے ہیں یا کوئی بھی دعائے ندبہ پڑھتے ہیں یا دعائے حد پڑھتے ہیں یا جو بھی دعائیں ہمارے دل سے قریب ہیں اور ہم ان کا ذکر کرتے ہیں، پڑھتے ہیں اور ان پہ توجہ کرتے ہیں، تو اس کے ساتھ ساتھ ہم ان وصیتوں کو جو شہداء کر گئے، جو ان کی زندگیوں سے جڑی ہوئی ہیں، ان کی طرف بھی توجہ کریں، کیونکہ اس سے یہ ہوتا ہے کہ اس وقت جب ہم اپنے دل کو پیوریفائی کر رہے ہوتے ہیں اور اس لمحے جب ہم ان شہداء کو جو اس وقت زندہ ہیں اور جنہوں نے اپنا سب کچھ اللہ کی راہ میں قربان کیا ہے، ان کے الفاظ کو پڑھتے ہیں تو وہ انسان کے وجود کو ایک الگ گہرائی سے، ایک الگ کیفیت سے اور ایک الگ اٹھان سے جو ہے وہ جوڑ دیتے ہیں۔ تو ہم تھوڑا سا ان چیزوں کے اوپر بھی توجہ دیں، اپنے اندر اس لطافت کو کریٹ کریں جو لطافت آج اس دور میں انسان کو بنجر پن کی صورت میں نظر آتی ہے، یہ جس پر ایسی برف جم چکی ہے کہ جو انسانوں کو جس نے جو ہے احساس کرنا ختم کر ہے۔ آج ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ ہم احساس کرتے ہیں مگر اس کو لمس نہیں کرتے کہ کتنی تکلیف، کتنی دکھ اور کتنی اذیتوں سے ہمارے فلسطینی بہن بھائی، کشمیری بہن بھائی، لبنانی بہن بھائی، یمن کے بہن بھائی اور جس طرح شام کے بہن بھائی ہیں وہ سب، اور جو بھی جہاں جہاں بھی دکھ تکلیف میں ہیں، سوڈان کے جیسے لوگ ہیں، سب گزر رہے ہیں اور کتنی اذیتیں اٹھا رہے ہیں۔ اور یہ سلسلہ اگر ہم یہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ ہمارے خاموش رہنے سے اور چپ چاپ ایک سائڈ پہ ہو جانے سے اور لا تعلق اور بے حس رہنے سے ختم ہو جائے گا، تو یقین کیجیے یہ انسان کی بھول ہے۔ یہ ظالم کو اور زیادہ طاقتور بنائے گا، یہ ظالم کو اور زیادہ امپاور کرے گا، یہ ظالم کی جرت کو اور بڑھائے گا اور یہ پھر ہر جگہ، ہر گلی، ہر محلے میں جائے گا۔ اور یہ لوگ ہوتے ہیں کہ جو اپنے لوگوں کی بھی پرواہ نہیں کرتے۔ اگر ہم یہ سوچیں، یہ ان کا نہ انسانیت سے تعلق ہوتا ہے اور نہ ہی کسی اور سے۔ تو اس لیے یہ جب ہم کلمہ گو ہیں اور لا الہ الا اللہ پڑھتے ہیں تو سب سے پہلے خدا نے لا کہنا سکھایا ہے ہمیں، اور وہ بھی وقت کے ظالمین کے خلاف، وقت کے طاغوتوں کے خلاف اور ایسے لوگوں کے خلاف جن لوگوں نے دنیا کو ظلم اور فساد سے بھر دیا ہے اور اپنے آپ کو وہ بہت سویلائزڈ اور نہیں معلوم کیا کیا سمجھتے اور کہتے اور کہلواتے ہیں۔ تو ہمارا اس میں جو ایک سائلنس کا جو کردار ہے یہ بہت ہی منافقانہ ہے اور ہمیں انہی کی صف میں کھڑا کرتا ہے۔ تو اگر ہمیں یہ لگتا ہے کہ ہم اس طرح کے کردار کے ساتھ خدا کے سامنے سرخرو ہو جائیں گے صرف اپنی عبادتوں، زیارتوں اور ذکر سے اور سارا کچھ، تو یہ ہماری سراسر بھول ہے، اس کی طرف ہمیں توجہ دینی چاہیے۔ ایک دو چھوٹی چھوٹی وصیتیں آپ کے ساتھ شیئر کرتی چلوں، کیونکہ ظاہر ہے شہداء ہیں، ان کے الفاظ بھی انسان کے دل کو زندہ کرتے ہیں جیسے ان کا خون انسان کے دل کو زندہ کرتا ہے۔ تو اس میں جس طرح بڑی خوبصورت ایک جو وصیت شہید ڈاکٹر مصطفیٰ چمران جو ہیں انہوں نے کی تھی، وہ کہتے ہیں کہ اے اللہ اگر میرے اعضاء بکھر جائیں، میری ہستی آگ میں جل جائے اور میں راکھ ہو کر ہوا میں اڑا دیا جاؤں، تب بھی میں صبر کروں گا اور اپنے خدا کی عاشقانہ عبادت کروں گا۔ کاش کہ میں شمع ہوتا تاکہ سر سے پیر تک جل جاتا اور تاریکی کو اپنے اطراف سے چھٹ دیتا۔ میں کفر اور الحاد کو اجازت نہیں دوں گا کہ ہمارے اوپر مسلط کر دیے جائیں۔ تو یہ جو ہے بڑی خوبصورت ایک وصیت تھی جو شہید مصطفیٰ چمران نے کی تھی۔ ابھی ہمارے پاس اور بھی ہیں لیکن انشاءاللہ پھر وہ ہم کسی اور عنوان سے آپ کے ساتھ شیئر کریں گے۔ ابھی ہم اپنے نیکسٹ ٹاپک کی طرف، نیکسٹ پارٹ کی طرف بڑھیں گے۔ We do have a respectable guest with us, Sister Sakina Datu, and the topic we are about to discuss is related to not only just updates regarding Gaza and the region itself, but also the Islamophobia within UK as well, and the role of Wilaya, the kind of role it has in our life and the kind of power we can generate out of it, and are we doing that enough or not? So assalamu alaikum, sister Sakina, I'm really honored to have you on the show. Very much for your time and participation and being with us today on all. I would like to ask something about the recent Islamophobic act which has happened in Muslim graveyard, and it was really upsetting that 100 graves were like disrespected in many ways, and uh, it- and uh, and there is a huge Islamophobic incident. This is a kind of huge Islamophobic event. So how do you see that, and what is the motive behind that? Why does it happen? What is your analysis on this incident?
Walaikum salam, Sister Faiza. Thank you for having me over. So, yeah, I mean, it is really disturbing. This happened at Carpenter's Park. A lot of people living in north of London, have their loved ones buried in this graveyard. And what is disturbing was that these were graves of children mostly, graves of children and infants. And initially, there was a kind of the language wasn't very clear from the authorities, from the police, trying to say that this was not certainly an Islamophobic attack, but eventually this is something that has been accepted. There is an investigation going on, but there is clear evidence that this was done as an instance of Islamophobia. And I think this is just not something that is by itself. It is a disturbing event, but we have to look at the totality of the realities we are living in. And the fact is that Islamophobia is so rife at the moment, I think more than ever. So I believe that, before October 7th and before, all these obvious protests, pro-Palestinian stance took place, a lot of people were Islamophobic, but it was something that they held within themselves. So, there is a lot of white supremacist values in this country, unfortunately. Some of them maliciously believe that they are a better people, and therefore everyone else is not welcome here. But also there is a lot of misinformation in my view. I think, the issue of immigration, for example, a lot of these people who you find but one of the places where you can see this is when you go to comment sections, on Twitter or Facebook or any of the social media. It's astounding, the kind of things they talk about. They actually want to kill Muslims. They want to wipe us off. They want to remove us from these countries. And now, unlike before, where there was a bit of a fear about saying this publicly, now there is no fear. People are saying it openly. And I think there's a lot of misinformation, which is channels such as GB, for example, are fueling it. So they numbers of immigrants, for example, the crimes, like the crime that happened in Rochdale, the sex crime that happened in Rochdale. It is something that none of us condone. I mean, no Muslim will tell you that that was acceptable. We would be the first people to feel alarmed with something like that happening. However, it has been turned into a political football, and making it look like it is only the Muslims or the Pakistani men who are like that, which is not true. A lot of sex crimes which are committed are actually committed by white people. So, there is an interest of the political elite and the media elite to turn this into anti-Muslim rhetoric. Because that serves their purpose, they get the votes when they make statements like that. But I find that, an incident like this one is something that we should all, as Muslims living in this country, who absolutely feel belonging to this nation, who are part of the British society. This is our home. We love being here. We don't have any other homes. For some people, maybe they are looking at alternatives or dual citizenship, but for a lot of us, this is the only home we have now, wherever we came from. And therefore, it is important for us to address these issues and to find a way, um, I think to address, first of all, through legal means, like, this particular one, we should not let it go. We should ask for investigations to be done and perpetrators to be brought to account. But also, I think there's a lot of soul searching for us as a community to also look into how we counter all this misinformation that is happening. So, for example, when our own communities are consuming the media that is against us, when you find that people within the Muslim community are some of the biggest supporters of channels like the BBC, will be watching GB News or watching ITV, then we are the first people who should start these boycotts that we talk about. We've talked about, boycotting BBC on its coverage of Gaza, for example. So when we support this, and we think that we are immune to what is happening is far away in Gaza or in Muslim worlds, that it's not going to affect us, this is proof that that is not the case. And therefore, if we are complicit with our silence, this is eventually going to come back to us.
That's very true, sister. It's very important to look into the matter very carefully and deeply, and we must, as a community, understand the root causes of these kind of issues that happens around us in the name of, defaming Islam or Muslims or even Pakistanis or whatsoever. Because this is the kind of strategy, especially about Pakistanis. This is something I a little bit understand, is that the same kind of mindset happens around in Arab countries for especially Pakistani Muslims, that they do have kind of policy, the kind of public policy in hidden way or whatsoever way, in which they, if there is a crime that is committed by XYZ community, and the same crime committed by, for example, Pakistani person, for example, they would treat it as a, humiliation, or kind of giving them very very bad name in many ways. And they would highlight it in such a way that these are the only people on the earth who commits that crime, for example. But in the same way, if the same crime is committed by XYZ community, no one would be saying anything. In fact, they will protect them. So do you think that our community and our people do understand this kind of strategy, and why do we have to explain every time that we are loyal people with wherever we are, no matter which particular place or country we are living in? We do abide by all the country laws, and we do respect them as a human being, as a, for example, Pakistani or whatsoever region we come from, as a Muslim whatsoever. Why do we have to keep explaining ourselves, over explanation? Why do we have to prove it all the time, whereas other communities don't have to do that? And they do this, maybe more heinous crimes and more heinous white collar crimes even, but they are never highlighted. But the things, if it's been done by any Muslim community, especially, for example, as you mentioned, Pakistani as well, I do understand that they do. I'm not saying that whatever they are doing is right. I would never ever say that. And anyone who commits crime is a criminal, and they should be charged under the law, and they must be highlighted as a criminal, not as a Pakistani or, for example, XYZ country Muslim and this and that. So these tags creates a kind of hatred. So don't you see this is the kind of strategy, and they take it further, and we as a community don't address it properly? Or do you think we do address this properly, and what we can do in order to avoid that kind of policy, and to stop that kind of policy to be working in different region, in different countries? Because this is the same thing that happens in when Pakistanis go to, for example, Saudi Arab or in UAE or in XYZ Islamic countries, because they do have specific policy in that regard to defame, disrespect, humiliate, and whatever they can do to humiliate Pakistani Muslims. So this is something. How do you see that?
I think, unfortunately, I do see that Pakistani community is one of the most demonized communities. I think in the UK, but also in around the world. And one of the reasons why I think that is case is, apart from the fact that, obviously Pakistanis are Muslims, that their migration numbers are high. So if you look at the UK, amongst the Muslims, the highest number of immigrant Muslim group is Pakistanis. So when you target, a large group, you are perpetrating Islamophobia more easily, because you are targeting a major part of that. So I do think that there is a demonizing of that, and the reason is to, and like you said, there are bad elements in every community. This by no means defines an entire community. You will find people who are criminals in every society, and unfortunately the same within the Pakistani or any community. I also think that even within the Muslim communities and themselves, there is also demonizing of the Pakistani community, even within the Muslim communities, and this is very unfortunate. So I think this is one of our problems, that instead of us coming together as Muslims, and fighting our battle together, you will find that within ourselves we will be dividing. I'm a Khoja, or I'm a Arab, or I am a you know Iranian. And even simple things, like it starts with basic social aspects, things like intermarriages, for example. When we talk of marriages, and there is a lot of these this demonizing of the other community, and discrimination, honestly, within ourselves, that I will not give my daughter, or I will not get married within this particular community. And that is, I think that we have to start the change within ourselves. We have to start the change here, before we become a group that confronts the hatred outside. And they are good people in every community, and they are bad people in every community. So I think there is a lot of soul searching that needs to be done within ourselves. Now also, if you look at the root cause of this, again, this comes from the colonial mindset. Most of our countries, all of us who come from diverse different countries around the world, our countries were colonized, and therefore, we subconsciously sometimes, we have these thoughts in our minds that we don't even know about. So if you think, that Pakistanis are less than, for example, Arabs, at some point it was implanted into you, or through your forefathers into you, why you have become like that. And I don't think there should be an apologizing, continuous apologizing. Why should any one community continue to apologize for the crimes of a few? This is a major issue, and I think this is what we need to target. We need to focus. And Sister Faiza, the problem is, all this happens because we are not on the path of the Ahlul Bayt. If we remember that, all our other identities are secondary to our values, even if you don't talk of the value of the Ahlul Bayt, just talk of the Islamic values. If we all realize that, first and foremost, we are human beings, and then we are Muslims, and then we are the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt. So that is such a strong identity that can bring us together, and everything else becomes secondary. So I really believe that there is a lot that our communities can do. There is a lot of we have this interfaith discussions and dialogues and programs going on a lot in the UK, and we've come to know recently that a lot of these interfaith programs are actually sponsored by the Zionists. So instead of us spending so much of our energy and resources and money into this, why don't we first start these kind of discussions inter-community? Communities of Muslims, communities of the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt, come together ourselves first and address these issues and problems. And I think when we become a strong Muslim group within ourselves, we'll have a stronger voice generally in the country.
That's very true, sister. We do have Aga Muhammad Nawab Ali with us as well. Assalamu alaikum. Aga, thank you so much for joining us today, and really honored to have you on the show. At the moment, we were just discussing Islamophobic event recently happened in Watford, in which cemetery was attacked, in which little infant children were also buried. So we were trying to discuss that as Islamophobic event. But the sister, as you mentioned, some points I would like to raise is that apparently, if I look at the community, Muslim community in generally they do have kind of similar values and the similar way of thinking somehow, not 100%, but like 70 to 80% they are nearly similar. And the most important part of that similarity is some kind of slavery mindset and over explaining ourselves to the other word that no, we are not like that. Why do we have to do that? This is something they I feel like they agitate the community in a such a way that we keep on explaining ourselves, we keep on defending ourselves, we keep on trying to tell that we are really good human being and good people. I mean, so I feel personally that this is something we, as you mentioned as well, we need to sit together and we need to talk about it and we need to create a strategy that this is something should not be happening to not only just the Muslim community but any community. As we were last speaking about rights of, I think so with you or some other sister, I was discussing the rights of black people, for instance. I mean, it could be any community, and we no community should have to self-explain themselves in such a way that if you come and offend them first and then they have to defend themselves, and even they are oppressed and then even then they have to keep explaining themselves. It's not the right way of doing things. That create confusion and that create kind of subordination maybe in their mind or whatsoever. I have no idea exactly what exact word I should use for that, but this is some kind of a very important aspect we need to work on. Anyways, when it comes to the values of Ahlul Bayt, Aga, I would move on to you now. That how would you, I mean, explain the role of Wilaya, especially when it comes to the situation in Gaza, in, for example, Kashmir, in Myanmar, in because these are all the issues related to Muslim Ummah. And when it comes to wilaya of not only just the Imam of our time, but the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then it goes on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you think we really understand that concept of wilaya and we follow it properly, and then we do whatever it requires from us. So what sort of duties does wilaya impose upon us when it comes to, from for example, wilaya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasul Khuda, or even Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and Quran? So what kind of duties do we have in order to perform in that regard, and especially if we talk about Gaza and Yemen and these regional issues which are so important at the moment. Genocide is going on, innocent lives are being taken away, and the children are burned recently in an attack in Khan Yunus, if I'm not wrong. So these kind of heinous actions are going on over there. And even if, for example, let's suppose if we are not doing anything, for example, just to save ourselves whatsoever, do you think it would stop there or it would move on further? How do you see that?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I pay my
Walaikum
greetings to
assalam.
all the people of
Agar
this
if you can speak little louder because I can't hear you properly.
Hidayat TV team,
Yes.
and I congratulate you guys on following the righteous cause and serving this holy purpose and being the voice of voiceless and people who word does not care about. So, as being human, as you mentioned earlier, that it's not sometime about a specific community, it's about the whole humanity, which in today's world is just a phrase and just a word, and nobody actually cares about it. And the Western values and the system which has built on these philosophy is now finished, and no one sees as the new ideal system to rule and operate the world, which it was shown and made understood the world after the Second World War and after these human right um, organizations and collaboration between countries, they took place, and they said this now is the era of awareness, is this now is the era of humanity, and all the countries from now on will work towards peace and toward the prosperity of the whole world under the umbrella of this United Nation thing. But it never worked, and it will never work because it is in the hands of the most, what you say, furious and most cruel powers of the world from the beginning of their rule. Just as you see United States, the way they came up as a big economy or as a world power, it was the most brutal way, killing thousands of innocents, colonizing, stealing their wealth, and building your country. That was the whole picture. Now, these organizations, which both the Muslim countries and the other world is a part of those, they are under the control and under influence of those powers. About the question you asked, I would like to raise a point that Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayhi once said, "Bunya al-Islam ala khams, ala salati wa zakati wa sawmi wal hajj wal wilaya." I'll just translate it real quick, that Islam is based upon 5 things and wilaya is one of those, and then the next sentence says, وَمَا نُودِيَ إِلَى شَيْءٍ مِثْلَ مَا نُودِيَ إِلَى wilaya. And no other aspect is more stressed and requested to follow other than wilaya, like namaz, the prayer, the zakat, hajj, all these things, they are important, they are part of Islam. But the system of Islam is like you have a bigger theme of wilaya. If people are under that umbrella, under that shelter, even their wrongdoings will be forgiven. But if the system and the control is in the wrong hands, even if they are pious people, even if they are practicing the Islamic values and Islamic Sharia, it will never work for the Muslim world. And that's what happened. So from the beginning of time, from when the Islam came, and later on after Prophet peace be upon him, Muslim never left like completely the Sharia law, never the Islamic values. But yet, this Islam did not give them the fruit they were expecting from Islam. So the missing part was wilaya from the very beginning. So if people get under the right leadership, it will take care of every other thing. Just like when these Jewish people at the time when Quran said, "Anni faddaltukum ala al-alamin," that Allah has chosen these people from other nations at that time because they followed Musa the way Allah has said. So they were good people at times. So just because of following Musa, following the right leadership, following Prophet Moses, Allah has shown miracles and like made a way in the river for them. They got to defeat the biggest empire on the world, and they were just very few in the numbers, just by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just why? Because they were under the right wilaya. They were following the right path. So unless the Muslim get to conclude that we have to get under the wilaya of Ahl Bayt, to find the Imam of our time, actually this theme of knowing and following Imam of our time is not in just the Shia literature and Shia books. From I'll read a hadith from Sahih al-Muslim, which says that if you don't know the Imam of time, if you're not aware of who you have to follow, then you would be counted as rebels from the religion. And the place for rebels is hell. So from the beginning, it was a confusion in Muslims. Who is the Ulil Amr? Who is the one we have to follow according to Quran, according to Islam? Yet there is no clear definition of and rules and a model of who can be a ulul amr. Just see what Muslim World is doing. In previous week or 2 weeks ago, the Islamic Council from Egypt, which had other scholars from all around the world, they have given a decree, a fatwa about the jihad and fight against the Zionists to help Palestinian people is wajib on all Muslims. And right on the next day, Jamiat al-Azhar, the Islamic seminary, the official Islamic seminary of Egypt, they denied it. They said the only way of right jihad is under a right Muslim ruler and a Muslim leadership. So unless the Muslim rulers are not doing anything, public are not supposed to do anything. So let what's happening happen, and you just pray and you just tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are sorry for them and forgive us. That's it. So just because not of having the right understanding of the Ulil Amr. And this is what Karbala has came in being for. This is what Imam Hussein has stood for. Anyone who is ruling Muslims, regardless of how he has came into the power, if he is accepted as a Muslim ruler, as an ulil amr, a person you have to follow, then the brutal of the crimes would be committed and no one would have the power to stand against it. And that's what Imam Hussein alayhi salam denied to accept. And it was his only crime. He was trying to tell that the Muslims have to follow the system of wilayah and the right leadership. So if you are talking about the system in Iran, the Islamic system, Islamic government, which is called Wilayat al-Faqih, it's a sort of the best opinion about what we can do best in the time of ghaiba, in the time when the Imam of our time is not there. So if you conclude logically that who is a person who must rule the Islamic society, should he be ignorant from the Islamic law, Islamic Sharia, or should he be a well-aware person? Or he must be an alim or mujtahid? Should he be anyone, regardless of what character he owns, or the most of the pious people? So just if we don't go towards what the hadith says and what Quran tells, our aql and our intellect and our logic tells us the person who rules in the time of when the Imam of the time is not there must be a person close to Imam and most look like to Imam in every aspect. So what Imam is the most adil and just person in the world, and Imam is the most alim, the most knowledgeable person in the world, and he holds the divine power and the right of wilayah. So person who has the most similarities to the Sirat of Ahl Bayt, most awareness to the way of Ahl Bayt, must be the rightful ruler of the Muslims. Otherwise, what would happen is you're seeing the Muslim world is following a model of where there is everything from Islam. There is prayer, there are zakat, there is charity, there is hajj, there are prayers being performed, every single thing. But Muslims are still being oppressed, have no power over them. So the system of wilaya tells you that either you are in the wilaya of shaitan or either into the wilaya of Allah. There's no third way. So every single of us have to look upon our lives that who we are following Quran, the yawma nad'u kulla unasin bi imamin mubin. So on the day of judgment we will raise and call every person with the imam of him, with the person who has followed in this world and with whom his concerned were. So we have to look upon our lives that who we are actually following and not just who we are claiming to. Thank you.
Thank you, Aga, for explaining what Wilaya is and how it works. So, Sakina, if you would like to add on that anything, because it's very important. What I understood from what Aga has explained is that Wilaya is, if we don't understand in some way, we are in Wilayat of somebody. For instance, whether it's our own desires, whether it's Satan, or whether it's Western civilization, for example, whether whatever is ruling upon us is the kind of we are living in their wilaya. For instance, the obedience we are doing, it depends on that whose obedience we are in. So how do you see this concept, and how what we don't really understand, for example, as community, how important it is for us to I mean, I've been sharing this question in many shows recently, that how important it is for our communities to understand this concept very carefully, and to establish our community in such a way that our youth, for example, our youth, our generations, and our resources would work for Imam of our time, not the Satan of our time. At the moment, what happening is, even though we are on majalis and we are doing this and that good thing and doing khuziara and whatsoever, but actually our real asset is our own energy, own power, for example, own capabilities, and our generation, our children, for example, they are our real asset. And all that asset, human asset, for example, in terms of capabilities, in terms of resources of our countries, for example, which are being stolen by these many huge powers, whatsoever you call it. So how important it is for us to understand the concept of wilaya as a community, and build a community that would work for the wilaya of Imam of our time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Ahlul Bayt, for instance. And we would use those resources, whether it's human resources, whether our own capabilities and skills. I'm not saying doing anything wrong. For example, our children go to, for example, XYZ universities, thinking that this is the most beautiful, most acceptable, for example, Harvard or whatsoever over here in UK. So why can't we, as a Muslim community around the globe, create such universities where people from the other countries would come and think, while thinking that this is the best one we have and we need to learn from here. Or even if we have to use any kind of health care program, for example, so do have to come to UK, USA, or whatsoever countries. So why don't we as a community have these kind of institution building and stuff like that? Even though I understand that the Muslim countries do have all the resources, Muslim community do have all the resources. It's just that we are, as we were earlier discussing that as well, that our mindsets are not focused, and we are under slavery, and we are trying to like protect ourselves in whatsoever way. So these are the kind of things, do you think that as a community we really need to ponder upon and think about? And second point, what I would like to ask is related to obviously situation on Gaza, and all that. How do you see that Israel and West, all the power which are fighting against innocent children, and genocide is going on, Do you think they are in winning position? They have achieved whatever they wanted, or you see it otherwise?
Okay. The first question is a very wide subject. I think there's a lot we can say on that one. So to start with, I think in my understanding, limited knowledge and limited understanding, um, I think coming from the faith that we have, which is the school of the Ahlul Bayt, we all believe in wilaya. I mean, somewhere, all of us, this is the basis of our belief. So I don't think that, it's a question of the community not being on the wilaya. The fact that we are all expecting our very, faith is based on awaiting for our imam is obvious that we are, on the path of wilaya. But how do we really understand that? How do we implement it on our day-to-day lives? How much of a preparations do we make? And as communities, once beyond the community, how the leaderships work, how the countries work, that is something major. And one of the reasons why the world is in a mess that it is in right now is the fact that the world is not on the path of wilaya. If it was, then we wouldn't be seeing the kind of bloodshed and the kind of injustice that exists around the world. And today, what is different from, I think, pre-October 7th is that a lot of this now is in everybody's eye. I mean, there is no one who can now pretend that they can't see the just injustice that appear are happening around the world. Not just know about that, but also understand who are the perpetrators. So in the past, maybe, we got away with not things being not very clear, but today you can't use that as a defense and say, I didn't know, I didn't understand that, and I wasn't part of this because, for example, those of us who live in the West, we can't pretend anymore that we didn't realize that our countries are complicit in the genocide that is going on. So I think that has changed, and therefore now, more than ever, the concept of understanding wilaya has become extremely important for each and every one of us. And I do think that to some extent this is coming to the fore. It does, in my view, it does not mean that we stop taking advantage of institutions that are not within our community. So for example, you mentioned Harvard, or you mentioned, for example, Oxford. um, we know the saying of the prophet, which says to us, acquire a knowledge even if you have to go to China. And at that time, China used to be the furthest, and it was not a Muslim area. So that is not the issue. The issue is, do go there, but do understand what your values are and how you can take whatever you can and then use it within the vessel that is the wilaya. And also, you can see again in the world, the countries that are on the path of the wilaya of our imam, but also those which have the leadership that is on this path. You can see their stance being quite different from others when it comes to the issue of Gaza, for example, which is the major, this is the biggest issue of our lifetime. And so, in my view, everything revolves around that. Whatever is happening around the world right now, you cannot escape the fact that there is a live genocide going on. And therefore, whatever we do has to be geared towards that. If you think at the moment that your life and your faith is got anything but that, then you are, in my view, not on the right path. So you can pray as many namaz as you want, you can do charity, you can have hundreds of majalis in your centers, but if you do not talk about the genocide, if you do not talk about the people who are oppressed, then in my view you are not on the path of the wilaya fully. Not to say you are not completely, but you are not fully understanding what wilaya is all about. And therefore, in that context, if you look at countries, Muslim countries, that supposedly are Muslim, but their support of Gaza is non-existent, if at all. Countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like Qatar, countries like UAE, Turkey, which may have elements of Islamic thought in them, you do see that they are actually aiding the Zionists. they are supporting in every manner. Now, when a country like the UK or the US is supporting these countries, it's not a major surprise for anybody, because these are part of the same axis. But when you get the Muslims supporting a killing of their own brothers and sisters, then this is where the problem is. On the other side, if you look at countries like Yemen today, to update, last night, Ras Isa, the northwest of Yemen, the US strikes killed 38 now civilians. So they are targeting, this vital oil port. But now they have done so much, they've tried so much to bomb, the facilities in Yemen. And the steadfastness of the Yemenis is amazing. I mean, people are out again on the streets today in their thousands, saying we are on this path and we will not move away from that, no matter what you do. So they are resorting to the same thing they're doing in Palestine, which is to kill civilians, because they can't do anything further than that. When it comes to Iran, we have seen how many months now we are hearing about the same threat going on from Trump. But why are they so reluctant? Why are they trying all these means of diplomacy to try and attack Iran? Because they understand that there is a power, not only the open military power that Iran is today. They are, it's an army day in Iran, and they are, you can see all these exercises going on in the Strait of Hormuz, where they are displaying the military might that they have. This is one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is the one which is not spoken about, which is the silent power of the wilaya that exists over there. And believe me, we may not see it, but it scares the enemy. There is precedence of the aeroplanes, at that time, or the ones which had flown and were lost trying to hit Iran. So there are these aspects which I think sometimes the enemy understands more than we ourselves. And in that context, I find it very difficult when within our own communities and Shia communities, you find that people, for example, will slag off Iran so easily and become such enemy, and speak so ill of it. Whereas now, post October 7th, we have seen even the non-Muslim communities, and Sister Faiza, we invite some of them over here who are not Muslims, who are not Shias, and they are so aware of the contribution of Iran towards justice in the world. And yet you've got our own, people, supposedly people from the who follow wilaya, so ill speaking and against the Iranian state. And this is the only Shia state that exists around the world at the moment. So I think there is a lot of, I think, deep thinking that needs to be done. I see progress. I see the younger generation being a bit more aware. But the leadership that Aga was talking about, I think this leadership is not only countries but community leaderships, and this is a major problem in my view. When we look at our own communities, there is such a lot of corruption. There is such a lot of shaitani values, sadly to say, that we are far away from the concept of wilaya within our community leaderships.
Thank you, sister, so much for explaining the some of the regional aspects, as well as Vilaya, and all the discussion we are having at the moment, because there are so many things to be discussed in more details. And in terms of Vilaya, what I was trying to, highlight or trying to ask exactly was like creating our system of Vilaya, like being independent of these systems, like where we depend for our education, for our businesses, for our even food, and or for our wearing, or for doing anything, we depend on, for example, Zionist companies and stuff like that. I don't mind, like, if we, as a person, I'm just discussing that, like we don't learn from others, it's good thing, and we must do that. It's not something it is bad, but what I was trying to say was creating a system of Velaya under the umbrella of Velaya wherever our people are around the globe, like our own Velaya educational system, health system, a system that would, for example, help those poor people in need. Like today, we think whenever anything happen, we say, "Oh, there is UN and they should do this and that," whereas we know that they are not going to do anything. There are people who have veto power over there, and they are not going to do anything like that. So creating that system around the globe within Muslim community, how important it is that for us to have our educational system meeting all the requirements globally, worldwide, and ours, sharing their original essence of Quran, Islam, and Ahlul Bayt and stuff like that. The based on those values in that sense. But the things you mentioned are really, really important equally, and I really honor that as well. Move toward the next part. I would like to ask how were there was a recent visit of Saudis in Iran, and there was a conversation between US and Iran as well. So, what did conclude from those important, visits of these people and conversations and of environment over there? Because it's very important that at the moment, as sister mentioned, that we need to be with what Rehber says is very, very important. And there are so many elements within Iran, outside Iran, and around the globe which are against Rehber as well, or who try to manipulate him in many ways. And this is our foremost, most important duty to support Rehber as a Vilayat Faqih and as a naib of our Imam and as a righteous person at the moment. So, how do you see these talks and conversation and the environment within Iran and the morale and the speech delivered as well? So, how would you like to conclude those all these things? And we do have 46 minutes, so you can take 8 to 9 minutes. So, I would take conclusive remarks from sister as well, just in case.
Thank you. Yes, as you mentioned that the recent developments are quite interesting, and between Iran like 2 years ago, earlier on after the Aramco attacks, actually. So just bilateral talks, it is seen by the world as a political and military sphere. So, however, you see diplomatic achievements for Iran are a fruit of their achievements in the field and in the military. So, what happened actually was very contrary what's happening right now. Like, if you go back to 2013, 2015, Saudi Arabia was not like the Saudi Arabia we see right now. It has changed and changed for a reason. They had um, a myth of being the first ally of United States and being completely they were not they were independent to make any deal and make any decision. So they made a decision about the neighbor country, and they were trying to carry their plan there, but it actually didn't work. So when the Yemenis are able to hit their oil facilities, and what can happen once can happen multiple times in the future as well. So, as per Saudi economy, it's not a very developed country, you know. It's just a showcase of development because they don't have their own they don't have their own infrastructure built by their own people. They rely on US for every single thing, even for to use their oil reserves. So this company, which has a 100-year treaty with US, Aramco, more than 40% of its profit goes straight to US, even when the US has nothing to do with the oil resources the Saudi owns. So when the myth was broken by very cheap Yemeni missiles, and they compared it to the most expensive buy from, and US was responsible for their security, but they failed it. So they came.
I think so. Aga, your voice is breaking up again and again. So if you can reconnect or something, it would be very helpful. Sister Sakina, how would you like to share your
Working.
viewpoint?
And now, no, you
If you can reconnect, that would be maybe helpful because at the moment it's not coming. Your voice is not coming clear. Sister, how would you like to conclude your viewpoint on overall discussion we had at the moment? What are the most important aspect we need to focus as a community, and in terms of whether it's in terms of Wilaya or whether in terms of Gaza? I would request leave 5 minutes just in case Aga is back and his voice is fine. Then we can take his conclusive
Okay,
remarks.
so very quickly, let me just talk about the issues of the systems that you talked about of Bilaya, and I do agree with you. But in my humble opinion, I think that what you are suggesting can be done to a limited stance, and this is mostly based on nations and countries, Muslim countries to develop. But as a global system, this can only happen, in my view, when Imam comes and he's ruling. I don't think in the present scenario, to be honest, there is. We can aim to have global systems of our own institute. This is not to say that Muslim countries should not develop these systems. I'm not saying that, but for example, also our identities, I think, are can be, if you're not careful, you can lose the concept of what our identity is. So one of the issues that I hear a lot, and it's decreased now, but we used to hear a lot about a few years back before October 7th, was this idea that we as Muslims should move away from the West and resettle into Muslim countries, and therefore, build these institutions within there. And I personally don't believe that that is the right thing to do. I think, wherever we are placed, all the land around the world belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the absence of the Imam, it is our responsibility to create the awareness of Imam in different societies. So if we ourselves were to leave these nations, then who will bring the message of the Imam here? So within the systems that are already existence, in the absence of Imam, I believe that it is our role to take the message, to take the message, for example, of Imam Hussein, to take the message of our living Imam into these systems, and then hope that, we create such a movement from down above that it will force, that natural progression when Imam comes to be able to put all these systems into place. We were talking about, Saudi and Iran and diplomacy, that is ongoing. Just a very quick point on that. I think Iran at the moment is exploring the diplomacy very, very well, because they don't want war. I mean, this is the main issue that people should understand, that Iran has the capabilities. It is not scared. But at the same time, war is not a good thing. Nobody wants war, except, of course, those who benefit, personally, from the US and their cronies of Trump, who benefit from war because they get to make a lot of money from these weapons. But any sensible nation like Iran does not want war. And so we see that, Arakchi was in Russia and met with Putin over there. Russia, a strategic partner of Iran. Iran at the moment is also holding talks, last week in Oman, and now tomorrow, this Saturday, in Rome, with the US. And also we saw the Saudi foreign minister visiting Tehran and meeting with Said Khamenei. Now, these are all diplomatic issues, but we should not confuse the fact that Saudis have not become our friend, of the friend of the world. The trust factor is still very small, as long as all these Muslim nations are puppet of the US and are dependent on the US, which is what I think Aga was trying to say. Then, but exploring diplomacy is a good thing, and I think that is, a positive moment. And just the final point I would like to say is the question you asked me earlier about Israel and US. Is it winning or losing? any empire that is, in its last leg becomes the most destructive force. And if you look at Israel, it has lost on every front. One of the things that, Netanyahu was recently in the US, and he was advocating for this war now with Iran, and he came back empty handed. He also, the tariff that was, despite the fact that US is supporting fully the genocide in Israel, they did not remove the tariffs that they have imposed on them. So you can see that there are cracks even within that. And there are also cracks within Europe and US. The war that Trump has started with China, for example, the European Union, yesterday we heard about Brazil now, exploring these ties with China, trade ties. And I think Trump has dug his own grave, and US is sharply on the decline on every front, on economic front, on political front. But unfortunately, the price that is being paid by people who are dying in Yemen and Palestine, this is part of the equation. But that leaves us to say, where do we fit into all this? So if our brothers and sisters are giving the sacrifices of their lives, then what is our responsibility in this? So one of our responsibility is to speak up, which is, what we are doing is to never give up on this idea that we have to keep speaking, we have to keep raising awareness, and speaking out against the genocide that is going on. And this, I think, is our primary responsibility.
So sorry, I think so you couldn't hear. So it is very important that we do support our brothers and sisters in Gaza, as we have seen Sister Fatima, who was a writer in, I think so, in Gaza, and she was, along with her family members, were killed. And as I saw, like in Khan Yunis, I think so, it was in which innocent children were taking refuge, and they were burned to death as well. So, Aga, how would you like to conclude? We have 4 minutes, with your, along with your previous comment, the most important thing we really need to focus on.
I'm sorry, the right break of the connection. My point was previously that if you see these recent developments and conclude that this is the Maya and power of following the right path, every other uh, power will uh, come to accept against it. So it was a political surrender. But if we have to see it from a different perspective, we as if the kind of leadership one has was being the Arab country, Turkey, or in any other Muslim countries. Just imagine like four people like Khamenei in the region, like on the top of Saudi Arabia, on Egypt, on Turkey. Sort of change would come to region. What he has done, a lot of people right inside Iran are also are not in alignment with what he has done in the terms of dealing out these. Because as being Shia, we have our own concern that the Saudi government, the Al Saud, this family, they were involved in our in shedding of our blood around the globe, especially in Iraq and Syria, in Pakistan, in different parts of in Nigeria. They have the direct link with the government who are crushing Shias as a community. So they were the fuel dot and made it against Shia Islamic government as well. But when they came as a friend to shake hand, we are the followers of Ahl Bayt. So we say that we don't. A Muslim is coming towards us to be friends and make the deal. So it shows their determination for peace in the region. Like we, more than our own concern interest, we care about the interest and concerns of Muslims. And this thing is acceptable for US and their ally Israel. Whatever makes them worry is, I think, the right thing to do. So not to look at in the past, but to look towards future, towards a better future, towards peace in the region. And definitely, if these peace talks are they are deep true, then this will make a big impact on the region, and it will push back the American and Zionist policy to isolate Iran and to control the and to go towards the plan of Greater Israel, which is their foremost. So these things would vanish the deal of century earlier in 2022, and it will make like lead the region towards uh, a new structure where Iran and Saudi are but are and allies. This will hurt the US interest for sure. So this is the right to do, and we hope forward to it as a development. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aga, for joining us today. And Sister Sakina, I'm really grateful for your time as well. Time is up now. And to the viewers, I would just say don't forget the people of Gaza. Try to attain wisdom as much as you can and stand up for truth, justice, and humanity, human values. Protect the children of Gaza and the families of Gaza and Palestine, and stand up and unite for justice and humanity in general. Inshallah, look after yourself and everyone around you. I'll take a leave now. We'll see you next week. Allah Hafiz.